Very well, thank you. Okay, welcome everyone to our May 6, 2021 GMAC meeting. Just thinking back, we've been going at this now since about April or May last year with these Zoom meetings, isn't it? So it's about a year now. And it seems to be going well, and we still may make a decision to keep it that way down the road. We don't know yet. But anyway, thanks to Tom's expertise and Don's expertise, we're able to do these remotely. So as we usually do, we'll introduce ourselves and make any announcements. It looks like we're all in attendance. I think you all know that we're a 4-member council at the moment. Melissa Finley, Don Hess, Tom Murphy, and myself, Robert Youngling. Do we have any announcements this evening from anyone in the audience? Well, actually, from Mary, any announcements?
From me? No, you didn't get any mail today. I went down and there were no CDPs or THPs or anything, so.
Okay.
We have the latest in the mail department. Other than that, I'm suffering from the oak pollen and everything that's blowing around in the wind. It's phenomenal.
Okay. No other announcements. What have we been doing lately? Have we been approving or disapproving the consent agenda all at once, or going
You've been
through?
doing the minutes. You have 2 sets of minutes, actually.
Yeah, let's go through it individually then. Yes. Okay, I see that.
And then the correspondence and then the agenda.
Okay, so the meeting minutes from our March 4th GMAC meeting had been tabled, and so they're now being submitted for approval. Would any last minute changes or edits, or can somebody make a motion on to approve or disapprove of those March 4th meeting minutes? Melissa, Tom, Don?
I think Tom's trying to say something, but he's muted.
I will move to approve the March 4 minutes.
Okay. And do we have a second on that?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Don seconds that. And let's vote on that. Melissa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And Robert. That's an aye. So March 4th GMAC meeting minutes have been approved. Thanks on that, Mary. And then we'll go right on to our next meeting minutes, set of meeting minutes. That's April 1st. We just need a motion on that one too.
Move to approve.
Okay. Second.
Second. I'll second.
Don. Okay, let's go through the vote process. Melissa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And Robert? Aye. Okay, thank you, Mary, for preparing both of those sets of minutes. Both of them are approved and behind us here. Okay.
Thank you for your patience on them since my computer went down all March.
Right. So correspondence, we have the 3 CDPs that we'll be talking about later when we assign them in item 6 of our agenda. MCN statement, I've been talking with Danielle at the county assessor, and that has been paid. So we're down to 2C, approval of tonight's May 6th agenda. Do we see any last minute edits or changes that we need to make, or moving things forward, such as, well, we'll be right going into the law enforcement report. So
I'll move to approve the agenda.
okay, second.
I'll second that.
Okay, Don, thanks. So let's approve our tonight's agenda. Melissa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And Robert? I'm an aye. Okay, thanks. So then we're down to public input on non-agenda items. Anything that's not on our agenda that anybody in our audience or the council or Mary wants to comment on? Okay, hearing none. we'll get to our guests from law enforcement. I guess Matt usually starts off, right? You were not with us last month, is that right?
That's right, and I'm sorry, Lieutenant Gomer had to be here in my stay, and now I've got to be here in his stay because he's actually out in training right now. I have some stats for you. It's been a pretty busy month on the South Coast, and especially for Gualala and Point Arena, but I think a lot of it is because we're having more movement now that COVID is beginning to slow down and things like that. So total calls for service for that Gualala area, we had 40 total calls for service for the Sheriff's Office. Out of those, 9 reports were taken. We had 2 arrests. The most significant calls were we've actually had 5 burglaries down on the South Coast. We made an arrest on that one of the pizza place, the Upper Crust Pizza. We've got 4 others that are possibly, we may have some leads on them. The information that we received regarding the folks who were casing the houses down in the Sea Ranch, I mean, these guys, they don't know jurisdictional boundaries. And so we put that information out on the Sheriff's Office Facebook page looking for anybody who may know these folks. We had 3 disturbance-related calls, 2 domestic violence incidents, 1 coroner's case, 3 fraud-related calls, and I would imagine that we're going to see an uptick in those this year. We're seeing an uptick in a lot of these phone scams and frauds across the United States right now. I'm seeing a lot more information pouring in, and it's not just the Western United States. I'm getting information pouring in from all over the place. We had 3 calls regarding suspicious circumstances and 1 vandalism call. And so, of course, our biggest concerns are the burglaries. And we want to get on top of a couple of different things this year when COVID ends, because more people are going to be traveling. We're working on a program that we call the While You're Away program for people who are going to be traveling and be away from their homes and whatnot. Please get a hold of your sector commander. That would be Lieutenant Comer on the coast and the South Coast. We have some very good tools at our disposal that I don't want to go into too deeply. But we can assist you in putting surveillance on your house and things like that, where the Sheriff's Office will be notified if anybody breaks in immediately. And so I'd like to be able to get that information out. Anybody who's going to be leaving for an extended amount of time, let us help you to keep your place safe. We're still hitting right now in that 80th percentile of solving burglaries on the South Coast, which is about 30% above the national average. Now, the reason why we have that is because we have a very good connection with the community. The community is picking up the phone and calling us when they see something that's out of place. And, you know, just like that previous burglary down there by the airport and whatnot, we got a lot of contacts from the community in pretty rapid succession. And that's what it takes to solve these cases. So we really appreciate that. We appreciate the partnership with the community, because when we see high clearance rates, we know that we are in touch with the community. It works out really well. Does anybody have any questions for me before we move on to Sergeant Finnegan?
I would like to inquire one thing. I heard about the people down on 10 Mile Cutoff who were vandalized because of their political banners and so on. And I think it's appalling, and I hope you caught the people who did that.
I don't believe that we've got anyone on that yet, but we're starting to see that. That is happening all over, and it's getting worse and worse. And we really need to get a handle on that, because I'm sorry, this is America. Everybody has a right to have their beliefs.
That's right. And they have a right to pin up any banner or sign they want to in their own front yard or on their gate.
Yep.
And it's First Amendment rights. And no one has the right to interfere with that. And it's appalling to me. I don't care what they're saying. You know, it's their right to say it, by golly gee whiz.
Amen. And the other thing is, when we start to have people destroying other people's properties because of their political belief, next thing you know, we're going to have people who are leaning in on people at the polls. It doesn't just stop at your, you know, at the banner that you put in front of your house. We can't have anybody leaned in on that, because it actually I mean, that is what tears at the fabric of America.
Well, it could lead to concentration camps too. I mean,
Exactly.
and I'm not being, overly whatever. You have a right to protest peacefully, and you have a right to put up any sign you want to, declaring how you feel about things.
Yep.
And I just find it appalling. And these people that about whom I'm speaking are the opposite of my political point of view. But I'll tell you, I'd love to go up and knock on their door and say, the next time this happens, call me. I'll help you put back together what was torn down. And come over to my house and have a cup of tea.
Yeah, and that's where we have to be, because honestly, if we let somebody who has opposite political beliefs of us, if their rights get trampled on, next thing you know, it's ours, and vice versa. So
That's right. I was just asking, and I'm hoping that you'll catch whoever did this.
Matt, we had an incident this past week down here at the building I'm in, and one of your deputies was very professional and efficient and came down quickly. That was on Monday. There was a break-in at the one restaurant here in this building.
Oh, okay.
So, and I didn't catch his name. It wasn't J.D. Comer. It was another gentleman, and he was just leaving as I was arriving at the building here.
Big, tall, young fella.
Yeah, I think it was dark-haired.
Yeah, very dark hair, big, tall kid. He's a local from Fort Bragg. As a matter of fact, he and I have cousins in common. You know how you can each have cousins in common but not be related?
Okay. And what is his name? I didn't catch it that day.
McGregor, Brandon McGregor.
And he's a sergeant, or what is he?
He is a canine officer, although his car does, I don't know that he had the canine car last week because one of the vehicles had a little issue.
McGregor. Okay, good. Thank you.
Hey, Tom?
Yeah, I have a question about those, the prowlers at Sea Ranch. Have you seen those people elsewhere, and any IDs on those people
Not
yet?
so far. Initially, one of them looked like a guy who had been around Fort Bragg, but when we were able to blow the pictures up and get a better look at it, it was not that guy. As a matter of fact, we believe that guy was in custody someplace else at the exact same time. I don't know if they came out of Sonoma County area and came, north up the coast, but we have not seen them in our area in the past. But Sea Ranch is just,
Okay.
I mean, it's just minutes from Gualala, and so of course we have concerns that they wouldn't look at the county sign and stay on their side of the line.
I actually was the one who referred the homeowner at Sea Ranch to
Oh, it was
JD.
great.
But I think JD was already ahead of that. And, in that case, it's hard to know if these people are locals or transients. We do get a lot of transients through town. And when you get to the Sea Ranch, there's these big, beautiful houses, and most of them look like they're empty. I can imagine it's pretty tempting for people to go up and take a close look, although I don't think this person actually broke in. So it was a prowling call on private property trespass.
And
But I'm really pleased to hear your department's on top of property crimes like that. 80% clearance rate is amazing. Congratulations to you and your department, and keep up the good
we
work.
appreciate it.
And
So,
thank you for your canine units. I think that's probably the best officer or partner officer that a human officer can have. And I'm really glad to see canine units on the coast.
So am I, and they're a force multiplier. In numerous times, I have been dealing with great, big, tough, ornery people that I know things could have gone south right up to the point that that car with the dog showed up. And there's something magical about a dog, and I don't mind saying it at all. There are a lot of people over the years who. You can see their body language change when that dog steps out of the car. Their shoulders go, okay, well, and the funny part about it is they can say all kinds of things to me, but they know that they cannot argue with the dog.
No.
It just doesn't work. you can't politic with the dog. If you're doing what's wrong and you want to fight, that dog's going to fight right back.
Well, and the dog can make the fence in 7 seconds, can you?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess I can turn it over to Sergeant Finnegan.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Sheriff. There aren't too many talking points on my list. I did want to loop back. A few months ago, we had discussed the possibility of bringing a CHP speed feedback trailer to the southbound side of town, southbound 1 as you enter town. And I've been working with my auto technician on trying to repair that, but the radar unit that's mounted in that trailer is malfunctioning or not working. So that the speed feedback portion of the sign isn't available at this time. So apologies for not being able to fulfill that request. And other than that, we're down 1 person this year. Officer Hosford retired earlier this year, and we're hoping to get a replacement to boost us back up to full staffing, which is 2 assigned to the South Coast and 4 assigned to the North Coast. But at this point, we just have, we're down that 1 person. And are there any questions or concerns, comments?
Quick one, Aaron. I noticed the speed feedback sign on the south end of Gualala. The wind blew the solar panel loose. It was dangling for a while, and I think somebody came and hopefully a Caltrans repairman or somebody, but it's gone. And I'm wondering if you'd heard anything about replacing that.
I have not, no. Yeah,
Okay. Fair enough. It's probably, that's a Caltrans thing, right?
They're just right across the parking lot from me though, so I will mention it.
Okay. You can holler over to them.
It's good to see you guys on the
Thanks.
road.
Yeah. it's
I'm
good to
always
be-
glad to see a CHP officer.
I did have one more item for Matt. You mentioned earlier, Matt, how it was great that the community was getting back to you with complaints and calling. I wanted to commend the department on Monday when I called in the incident that we had here. At the time, the dispatch number that we have for you was malfunctioning or something. So I guess it was the secretary or the lady that's in your department quickly gave us another dispatch number, and we were able to contact the deputy, McGregor, I guess, and he came down. And the fact that there was somebody else available to come down and let us do our complaint on that or file our report on that with him was great. So I wanted to commend you on taking care of that. I mean, having that dispatch number is great for us down here.
Yeah, it is. And we have several dispatch numbers. The 961 number, that 2421, that rings to dispatch. 463-4086, 4095 also. So if you have all 3 of those, and occasionally, strangely enough, we will have issues with calls coming from the coast, but it's normally we've had a lot of issues, not so much from wind, but due to rain. And I don't know what's causing that. I know that AT&T has worked on it numerous times, but we've had a lot of issues over the years with rain, but not so much wind. So
could you mention those numbers again?
961-2421 rings to dispatch in Ukiah. 463-4086.
Right.
463-4095.
4095. Okay.
And all of those ring over to dispatch.
Okay. What is the one that I have here? 4411. Which one is that?
That one rings into our front office, and then that's for most office business. But most of the time at night, that rings over to dispatch. And once in a while, there's a problem with that relay, because if we've still got ladies working in the office, they won't relay it over in the evenings. They'd rather take the business calls here and not relay them to dispatch.
Okay, we got them all. Thank you.
All right. Now, we expect calls for service to go up as more tourists begin to come to town and whatnot. And when we have a lot of patrols, calls for service actually go down. But with the summertime months coming, we do have an expectation with the COVID restrictions being lifted and whatnot to have an influx of people. I mean, Lord knows I love to be in Gualala when it's 115 degrees at my house. I'm one of those terrible tourists that goes over there just for the fog and the cool weather. So, and my grandmother's buried there in Anchor Bay, and so we spend quite a bit of time over there in the summer. But, you know, it's those tourists like me that are going to be over there in, you know, the hot summer afternoon. So let's all be ready. Anything that looks out of place, please keep us informed, because that's what keeps our clearances at that high rate. Just good communication.
Okay, thank
Well,
you
you
very
guys
much.
all
Bob.
have your, well, you all have your pencils hot. You can write down my dispatch direct line as well. It's
All right.
911.
911?
Yeah.
Okay,
That'll get you straight there.
straight.
But all kidding aside, if you guys do want the non-emergency number, I do have that. It's 467-4000.
That's CHP dispatch,
That's a
right?
CHP dispatch. Yeah, I just want to, all kidding aside, that is the direct non-emergency number. But again, it in all seriousness, don't hesitate, even though you know that you need a report from the sheriffs. If there is ever a communication issue, do feel free to call 911 directly, which will go, it does route to our call center. And then our dispatcher can get the appropriate resources started as well. And they can transfer you to SO dispatch directly, or to Howard Forest, you know, for fire, Coast Guard, et cetera, lifeguard, whatever it might be, can be routed directly.
Okay.
And just before the sheriff signs off, I wanted to make sure to publicly thank him. Our cooperation on the coast has been outstanding. Lieutenant Comer's doing an outstanding job. We've had a chance to train together. We're setting up some training for the CHP to provide to them as well. And things have been going really well. I've really appreciated working together.
Well, when you're in a county like ours and nobody's got enough to go around, many hands make for light work, and it doesn't matter what color uniform you're wearing. We're all doing the same job.
Amen.
And we appreciate it.
So if there's nothing else, I'm going to have to run off because I've got one more meeting this evening, and then I've got to get home and feed the livestock and take care of the chickens.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
You guys
Thank
have
you.
a good evening.
Okay.
And I'm
Thank you
hoping
both.
that,
Thank you,
Do we
Sheriff.
know when
Thank
we're
you,
gonna be
Officer
able to-
Finnegan.
do we know when we're going to be able to meet in person again?
Nope.
Not
You
yet.
don't have a time frame yet?
Yeah, it's we're going to try to maintain a video presence anyway. We'll probably have to at some point return to some meeting. I did hear that the California legislature approved a bill to allow some meetings to continue on video because it's actually more participation this way than in person. So regardless, we're going to try to find a way to continue to record and post these meetings, because typically we get 100 people watching the meetings afterwards. So always be on your best behavior at these meetings. People watch.
That's
All
good
right.
outreach. It's really
You have a
good
good
outreach.
evening. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Then we'll move along with our agenda. We're down to number 5, council matters. Do we have any old business?
Is there any news about applicants to become GMAC members?
Still no news, Melissa. I will continue to pursue that.
Hound them mercilessly.
I'll be after it here. Continue to be. Okay, any other old business?
What about the quorum business? Have you heard from them yet on that?
No news there either.
Nothing this past month.
Thank you.
Can't read or count.
What's that?
They can't read or count.
Well, we're getting to the busy time of the year here too. So I have a feeling we're not going to get as much follow-up on some of these issues that we're asking about. But we'll keep trying. We'll keep working at it. Should we proceed? We'll go on to 5B, which is the GCAP committee report from Tom and myself. And Tom.
Yes, I prepared a PowerPoint that I'd like to give to the council, and I'm going to ask everybody just to watch and listen during the PowerPoint and then ask questions and discussion afterwards. Please do not interrupt the PowerPoint. I'm going to record this and share it with the community afterwards. So let me just start with that. I'm going to share a screen. Okay, this is the report of the Gualala Area Community Plan, Gualala Community Area Plan Committee on the streetscape requirements for the Gualala MAC in May 2021. These requirements are set by the 2002 Gualala Town Plan, which is enshrined in county ordinances and part of the California Coastal Plan. Just to remind everybody, I'm going to go through a bit of history. The town plan says the main goal of the streetscape project is to make Highway 1 a scenic element of the Gualala townscape to decrease traffic congestion, reduce potential safety hazards, and encourage more pedestrian activity. This began in 1995 when the Gualala Action Committee laid the foundation for the town plan. It was finalized in 2002 when the Coastal Commission made the town plan our local coastal plan after the county adopted it in ordinances. In 2012, the Mendocino Council of Governments agreed to the interim constrained parking plan, which was an agreement with the surf center owners to allow interim parking at the surf center until they finished the redevelopment project there, but then move that parking back into that parking lot. Around that time, the highway width was also modified to 60 feet due to existing constraints in the project. In 2019, Caltrans began the preliminary negative declaration review on this project with alternatives 1 and 2. Substantial debate ensued, and long story short, in 2021, Caltrans conducted a survey in January, found very strong support for alternatives 4A and 4B, which comply with the town plan. GMAC approved both these options, as did several community groups, including the Save Gualala group, which had now has 1,650 signatures on their petition. GMAC asked MCOG more recently to move forward with the project as soon as possible, now that there seems to be broad agreement on this, without further recirculation for modifications. Caltrans began assessment of 3 additional ideas for a possible alternative 4C. MCOG has asked Caltrans staff to bring the completed plan back for action as soon as possible, and GMAC provides community input on ideas for 4C, and we're asking Caltrans to move forward on this. The California Environmental Quality Act allows approval of an option like 4C without recirculation under certain conditions. This is important to understand. Recirculation is not required under the following circumstances: if the measures or conditions of the project's approval are added after the circulation of the negative declaration, which are not required by CEQA, as in this case, which do not create new significant environmental effects, still true, and are not necessary to mitigate an avoidable significant effect. And also if new information is added to the negative declaration, which merely clarifies, amplifies, or makes insignificant modifications to the negative declaration. So really C3 is the issue we're looking at. One of the items we'll talk about tonight would have a significant environmental effect. The other 2 would not. So in my opinion, and we'll walk through these. Just to review, alternative 4, which is very strongly supported by the town, was developed by Caltrans and approved by GMAC and by the survey. It complies with the town plan, and it was endorsed by Gualala MAC in January 2021, also supported by Save Gualala. 4A and 4B are the 2 flavors of that so far, And the only difference between them is from Church to Ocean, where the parking, interim parking would be either on the right side of the street in option 4A or the left side in 4B. At the Mendocino Council of Governments meeting on April 5th, which Robert and I attended, and you can watch it at tinyurl.com/MCOG-APR5-2021. Caltrans reported very strong support for 4A and B, but said it was assessing 3 options that could result in Alts 4C. Those 3 options, which I'll go through in more detail, are possible truck parking on the highway at the community center. Caltrans owns a strip of land on the east side of the highway, right at the front of the community center property. The other 2 involve a possible left turn lane at the north end of the project at Ocean Drive, where we had a serious injury accident recently. And the third was possible interim parking at the Surf. We assume that's in lieu of the parking in the northeast part of town in 4A. There were public comments at the meeting by John Bauer, George Provencher, Dave Shapak, and others, including myself, who presented GMAC's resolution from our last meeting, urging expedited approval and no further public review of the concept. I also showed pictures of the parking throughout town and the Surf Center redevelopment idea that Mr. Bauer had developed years ago and is now talking about updating. The bottom line is that MCOG decided to vote on this matter soon. The chairman, Dan Jurdy, who's also a county supervisor, said, I think we can bring this back as an action item as soon as you're ready, speaking to MCOG staff and Caltrans. Robert and I have reached out to Caltrans as a committee, but we're told the revisions would not even be considered for another month. And that would bring us to early May, which is about now. So we want to follow up with Caltrans. We invited them to the meeting tonight, and unfortunately, I guess they were unable to attend. We did not hear back on our request to submit comments. We're hoping that the council will come together and give us more feedback tonight, along with anybody from the community. And we'll give input on the 3 ideas from the community back to Caltrans so that they can bring it back to MCOG as soon as possible. I mentioned the first idea was to allow, they're studying the feasibility of truck and large vehicle parking at the community center. I'll use my cursor here if you can follow it, but the Caltrans has also pointed to this area with arrows. You see this strip of land at the front of the community center property on the highway. They're proposing to turn that into a parking lot for large trucks and large vehicles. This would be directly opposite the existing parking lot on the west side of the highway. And it would create a very wide plaza, I would estimate 80 to 100 feet. This is the area in question. Now, I want you to look at this and consider you're coming into Gualala from the south for the first time, the gateway to Mendocino County. Just as you see the signs for the Lions and the Rotaries and all that, you're going to see trucks and large vehicles parked there like this. I apologize for the amateurish nature of these drawings, but it does give you an idea of how a couple of large trucks would look there. Because it's a hillside, I'm assuming there would also be a large retaining wall there. And what you're not seeing in this photo is the bike and pedestrian sidewalk is also supposed to be running in here. That, I guess, would be on the street side of this. We don't know. It could be on the retaining wall side. Either way, that's what you'd have. I'm going to flip back again. This or this.
No way. No.
Looking at it from the north end, this is the view from the Sunstrom Mall driveway, looking south. Now you can see that little car there, that Prius, is coming up pretty fast, and you really couldn't see that car you can only see that car for about 2 seconds after they emerge from further south. If you pulled out right now in front of that car, you'd have a collision. If you put big trucks there, in that same picture, this is basically what you'd have. You'd have a giant truck there blocking your vision, and pulling out would be much more hazardous. Again, I apologize for the amateurish quality of these photos, but they make the point. This is one more shot that shows you the existing parking lot on the west and then the area that would be covered on the right. This or this. And this one reminded me of the quote from Una Workabout, who appeared at our meeting last year. Una represented the county's economic development program called Move 2030. Una said, Gualala's appearance is critical to the future of ecotourism in Mendocino County. We can't let it look like a truck stop. We need a sense of nature and beauty from Gualala to Westport. Personally, I couldn't agree more. And this does not look like anything but a truck plaza to me. Our GCAP committee findings, Robert and I discussed this in some depth. We think the idea of the truck parking would violate the town plan on parking and aesthetics grounds. The town plan requires to help mark the southern entry and gateway into Gualala with a planted median to be provided. If you had a turn lane in the center of the highway, as the town plan requires, and as Caltrans provided in option 4, 4A and 4B, that could begin with a planted median. B, the project, according to the town plan, shall be required to help make Highway 1 a scenic element of the Gualala town plan. There is no way that I think anybody in Gualala would agree that a truck plaza would add to the scenic element to the townscape. And C, the town plan says parking areas, buildings, and associated landscaping shall be located outside the corridor preservation setback. We believe this raises serious safety concerns due to limited visibility, as you saw with that car coming on and would be hidden by a truck. The location is also inappropriate because who's going to park there and walk to the closest stores? We have ample parking off highway already in several locations, including the Gualala Country Inn, the Community Center, Sunstrom Mall, and other locales where trucks regularly park, and RVs as well. And any time during the day, if you go downtown, you're likely to see them. Existing highway parking is closer and already used by large vehicles. Combined with the existing Caltrans parking lot on the west side, this would transform our southern gateway into a large parking plaza for trucks and large vehicles. So our recommendation as a committee is to have GMAC advise Caltrans and MCOG to reject this idea. Going on to the second idea, which is parking at the SURF. We have previously suggested this at GMAC twice. In fact, we voted to allow interim parking at the SURF according to the interim constraint plan approved by the county in 2012. We've been told that couldn't happen. And when Alternative 4 was developed, Caltrans said that there was too much congestion downtown to allow parking there. So we dropped it and we supported Alternative 4A and 4B as a result. Caltrans came back at the MCOG meeting and said that it was community requested if parking can be considered in front of the SURF market. Option 4C may be explored to assess this feasibility, and the design team is assessing that now. So that's one of the questions before the council tonight is, what do we think about that at this point? The town has already approved 4A and 4B. In the survey, 4A and 4B got more votes as far as an option of where the parking should be than anywhere between Center and Church. By about 10 percentage points, by the way, I just checked. This is the reason why we generally do not like the idea of on-highway parking. And you might recognize that truck. I borrowed this truck for the other picture. But this is a real picture. This is the exit of the surf center on the southern end. And it is probably the place most likely to have an accident in Gualala when there is a vehicle like that, or even a smaller vehicle parked there. I often see SUVs. I often see other kinds of trucks, or even just passenger cars, obscure the view of what's coming. So we don't want anything but interim parking there, if anything. And the town plan is explicit about that. At night, the situation's even worse, especially on a rainy night. Now, the final idea was for the left turn lane at Ocean Avenue. Again, Caltrans said community requested the feasibility of a southbound Highway 1 left turn lane onto Ocean. That's only the southbound one, and it's only to Ocean, a left turn to Ocean. However, in order to accommodate that, you would need, here's southbound 1. This would be a turn lane for southbound 1 turning on to Ocean. But you'll notice that there's another lane over here, left turn lane, allowing a left turn lane onto Ocean for northbound traffic. The bad part about this is this comes from, this is alternative 2 with a 60-foot width. And you can see it can happen within a 60-foot width that you could have left turn lanes. This would also, this was from alternative 2, which had a continuous left turn lane all through this area. Alternative 3 expanded that to a 76-foot width. And alternative 3 was withdrawn partly because of this kind of extra wide berth, which would take out trees and bushes, eliminate a lot of greenery, allow a lot of pavement and retaining walls throughout the project area. And it had no landscaping. So our GCAP findings on the idea of parking at the surf and the left turn lane at Ocean Drive, we combine these, and I'll present those. A, interim parking could be accommodated under the Gualala Town Plan per the 2012 MCOG agreement, but as that agreement said, it is not preferred. And left turn lanes also may be allowed under the GDP. In fact, the GDP requires left turn lanes. B, GMAC previously approved interim parking at the surf twice and then favored 4A because Caltrans determined the downtown was too congested. That may have skewed the results of the survey, and it certainly affected my personal thinking on this project in voting for 4A. If they had not made that finding, I think we might possibly have seen more support for parking in front of the surf because that's where people actually park on the highway in Gualala at the present time. That would be resolved long-term by Mr. Bauer's redevelopment project for the surf center. And in the meantime, if safety conditions allowed, we could allow some interim parking there per the 2012 agreement. Now, if the council reapproves this, or at least as an option, we believe these conditions should be attached. Allow it only if Caltrans reverses itself and finds the current traffic level can accommodate interim parking safely. Set the interim at 4 years or until completion of the surf center redevelopment project, whichever comes first, and start that clock with MCOG's approval of the concept. Require a 25-foot view clearance from driveways, both northbound and southbound, with red curbs as soon as possible due to existing hazards. They should really be doing that anyway. That truck wouldn't be there if that were the case now. And quite honestly, I'll tell you, if this were my property, I'd be out there with a can of red paint and a brush because I don't want to see people get hurt. We'd ask them to position the bike lanes inside the parking lane to enhance safety and minimize restriping in the future. In that case, they'd only have to change that parking lane back into a traffic lane and add the turn lane in the middle and not realign the bike lane at the same time. And having the bike lanes and pedestrians inside the parking lane now would give a little bit of a buffer area between the parking, between the moving traffic and those features. We'd also like to see them set a time limit of 45 minutes for the use of any interim on-way highway spaces. That's because there's almost always off-highway spaces that people could take, and they take the on-highway spaces out of convenience. If they're going in the store or even running in and doing a quick business deal in one of the businesses there, that could be allowed in an interim basis, but time limited. and include interim spaces for large vehicles at the surf center with proper view clearance. One of the main proponents for large vehicle parkings has been Mr. Bauer and the surf center. They will be redeveloping the surf center and can create off-highway parking for large vehicles over time. We don't want them at the community center, and but they could be at the surf center on private property off-highway. But in the meantime, those interim spaces could also be used for a delivery truck or whatever needs to stop there. We'd also ask to eliminate interim parking in 4A and 4B, just to make sure that's part of the plan, in favor of safer turn options from Church to Ocean. And we'd also want an agreement that no additional public review, recirculation of the plan would be needed per that CEQA section I cited earlier, because there is a negligible environmental impact. We're simply moving the parking from one part of town to the other and improving safety as the town plan requires. So our recommendation on these two options is that GMAC advise Caltrans and MCOG to assess 4C with the above conditions. Now, we've prepared two motions for tonight, and I guess the proper way to do this would be to read these motions and then open it up to community and council discussion. Robert, is that correct?
I agree, yes.
Okay. I'll read the first motion for the Gualala MAC for truck and large vehicle parking. It is that Gualala MAC strongly advises Caltrans and MCOG to reject the idea of adding truck and large vehicle parking by the Gualala Community Center for the following reasons. One, this would violate the Gualala Town Plan on aesthetics grounds. The GDP says the project shall be required to help make Highway 1 a scenic element of the Gualala townscape, and to mark the southern entry of the gateway into Gualala, a planted median shall be provided. This parking idea is antithetical to either goal. Two, this is beyond the project scope, which bars parking on the highway. The GDP says parking areas shall be located outside of the corridor preservation setback. Three, this raises a dangerous safety issue by limiting visibility of oncoming traffic at one of Gualala's busiest intersections. Four, this location is inappropriate due to walking distance to the closest stores. Existing off-highway parking is closer and already used by large vehicles. And five, this would add considerably to the timing and cost of a vital safety project that the community already has been waiting 26 years for. Likely, a major revision of the Gualala Town Plan would be required, adding potentially another decade of delay and millions of dollars to the cost. And I'll read the second motion, and then we'll need to get a second before we can have discussions. Motion 2, Gualala MAC advises Caltrans and MCOG that an alternative 4C, if any, of the Gualala downtown project may contain both interim parking at the surf center and a left turn lane for safety at Highway 1 Ocean Drive intersection, subject to the following conditions. Caltrans must reverse its former finding and affirm that current congestion levels can tolerate interim parking by the surf center. They should set the interim at 4 years from the time of MCOG approval, or ending with completion of the surf center project, whichever comes first. They should require a 25-foot red curb view clearance from all driveways, both north and south, to enhance safety during this interim. They should position bike lanes inside parking lanes to enhance safety and minimize restriping needs in the future. They should set parking time limit of 45 minutes for any interim parking on the highway spaces, and allow use of interim spaces by large trucks and vehicles if needed. They should eliminate interim parking proposed in 4A and 4B to add the northbound and southbound turn lane from Church to Ocean Drive, including southbound Highway 1 at Ocean. That's a little convoluted. I can go over that if anybody has any questions. But basically it means that there would be turn options all the way from Church all the way past Ocean to make sure that everybody has a way to make a safe left turn, whether northbound or southbound. They should complete the negative declaration process that Caltrans began in June 2019 without recirculation per the CEQA section we've cited. And Caltrans should return the completed concept to MCOG for action as soon as possible per the direction of the council on April 5th, 2021. Now, I think it would be appropriate to call for a second so that we can open discussion. I would move to I would move on motion 1 and motion 2. Is there a second?
Melissa or Don, would you entertain making a second? Or I feel a little bit, since I went over all this in detail with Tom, it would feel a little one-sided if I made a second on it.
I would be willing to second motion 1. Motion 2, I don't know, I'm not entirely convinced. Personally, I feel since the last time around.
Let's not discuss it yet. If you're not
Okay,
convinced,
fine.
wait till we have a motion. So we have a second on motion 1,
Let's discuss that.
and we need a motion. You want to? Okay, let's go back and discuss motion 1.
The whole idea.
Anybody in the? I think the public would first want to comment on this, Robert,
Sounds good.
if I'm correct.
Or other council members.
Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment? All right, nobody from the public has commented. Anybody in the council want to comment on this?
Melissa, Don?
Yeah, this strikes me as a very bad idea. Basically, they would have to design and build a retaining wall to make that space wide enough for trucks to park. That could be rather complicated with the Coastal Commission. And also, yeah, it would look terrible. I think driving into town and seeing all these trucks there. On the other hand, the reality that I see in our town is that it isn't that often that these big trucks are parked there. At least I don't see them very often. Occasionally, yes. And certainly that photo of a truck parked, in front of the surf market, basically blocking the view of the road for the exit. I mean, what more do you need than to say, parking should be banned in that area entirely? That is kind of why I'm not all that hot on interim parking in front of the surf. Because I feel.
Well, that's motion
Yes, it
2,
is.
so
Okay,
we can't.
but-
Well, let's not discuss motion
Okay, in
2.
any event, the additional truck parking, I'm not in favor of. In the meantime, I mean, the trucks can still park in that pull-out area. There's
True.
nothing stopping them from, and that is Caltrans property. It's nobody else's property. And if Caltrans allows trucks to park there, they can park there, and I have seen them there. And I think, well, that's the way it has been, and I think that's okay. It's not ideal, but nevertheless, that's kind of, that type of parking, I think, is sort of grandfathered in to a certain extent.
Right, in the southbound direction.
Yes, in the southbound direction, but let's not create a whole new large, big truck parking area on the other side of the street.
Right. It came about primarily because that is where Caltrans has the most property ownership in that area of town, or a 95-foot wide highway right-of-way they have there at that location. So that was brought up at the survey that they received from the community. Couldn't there be more done with the Caltrans right-of-way down in that section? So I think it went the wrong direction in that we start talking about truck parking down that area, and we could really accommodate truck parking off-site or off-street, off-highway. But no, we're looking to get feedback from all of you guys, not from us necessarily. So thank you for your input, Dawn. Melissa or anybody else in the audience on this motion 1?
I think it'd be hideous to put parking there. I would definitely vote no. No, no, no.
Well, you done, Melissa? The other thing I wanted to say was, since we'll have just thinner strips of landscaping through the main part of town, the opportunity really presents itself to have where the Caltrans right-of-way is wider at the gateway or entrance to Gualala and southern Mendocino County at the south end of town to do a little bit more with landscaping in that area. I think that's something we didn't mention, Tom. Additional right-of-way allows us to do additional landscaping in that gateway entry area to Gualala.
Yeah, well, remember, Caltrans does not do landscaping, but as part of this project, MCOG would take that over and work with people in our community to develop proper landscape plans. So that's a possibility. Right now, I think that little hill looks very pretty the way it is, but if we wanted to do something different, that would be up to the community in the future.
Right.
And if they turn it into a truck plaza, it would not be a possibility.
Yeah, and there's a possibility that Caltrans could maybe cede some of that land excess right away to the county on that side also.
Yeah. So any other comments, or should we vote?
I think we could vote on motion 1 if we have no further comment.
What was motion 1?
The one that's on the screen right now.
I don't have it.
She can't see it.
Oh,
Okay, let me review for Melissa's sake. Motion 1 would say Gualala MAC strongly advises Caltrans and MCOG to reject the idea of adding truck or large vehicle parking by the Gualala Community Center for the following reasons. And then it states 5 different reasons that I read earlier.
They're whatever they are, they're good enough for me. I'm sorry, I fell asleep. Ugh.
Do you want me to read them again?
No. I'm sure I read just.
Okay, so if you vote for motion 1, you would be against parking at the community center.
That's what I need to know. Thank you.
large vehicle parking, yeah, truck parking.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
Yes.
You know, as the situation exists now, other than the Caltrans pullout area, which is just newly paved, and that strip right in front of the surf market where we have seen large trucks park, what other options are there for large trucks or large RVs, for example?
Well, I think that's a great question. Almost all the stores in Gualala get, can I answer that?
Yep.
Almost all the stores in Gualala have regular truck vehicle and large vehicle parking available. For example, the supermarkets get regular deliveries. The gas stations have tankers pull in. There are lots of places on near Sunstrom Mall. The surf market, when they do their redevelopment, if they feel this is important, I know they're already planning for a delivery dock for large trucks. They already have one on their current property, and they could build in more facilities if they want to provide off-highway parking. But off-highway parking would be the solution, and that's why you rarely see trucks parked on the highway now. Because why would they park on the highway if they can park closer to the store they're delivering to, or an RV can pull into a parking lot near a store that they want to visit? So the location is They would be parking off highway is basically the answer.
Okay, well, I'm curious whether these trucks, other than the delivery trucks for the surf market, which we know their loading dock is back behind the store a ways in that gravel, rather large gravel parking area. Do any other large vehicles park back there and just walk to the store they want to go to? I'm curious, because there's plenty of space there for them.
I have seen large trucks parked in the front of the surf center. I don't regularly go behind the surf center. And I often see them parked at some of the motels or at the Sunstrom Mall in that large parking area behind the hotel especially. And of course, the gas stations, I don't think just regular trucks park there, but they pull in there for fuel, and delivery vehicles go there as well. So there are other parking options available off highway right now, and they are used pretty regularly. And you're right, Don. Trucks rarely park on the highway right now.
Okay, because I really don't want to sound like, I am against trucks or trucks parking somewhere, because I'm not. I mean, we need deliveries, or people are driving through, they need to stop, get something to eat or whatever. I understand that, and I think there should be some space for them. And in thinking about it, the big space we have for them is that area behind the surf market center. So I just want to make that clear that I am not against trucks, but I do think it's a bad idea to carve out a new truck specific area right there at the Gualala Community Center.
Okay, I agree. Over the years, and I've been here quite a few, you'll see that truckers they'll find a place usually off the highway to park comfortably. And in addition to all the areas that you mentioned, I mean, behind the Gualala Hotel, behind the surf, the gas station, big tankers, they'll also park behind the Gualala Country Inn on the community center property. A lot of times when we have big storms in the winter, they just have to be directed. They'd park up here at the intersection of Ocean Drive and Highway 1 a lot of times on the west side. The big PG&E trucks that Tom showed in those pictures. They'll also park at the Sea Cliff on site on these different properties. I think we just have to maybe with a little bit of nice signage, direct them a little bit, to stay off of the main corridor, especially when it becomes a 60-foot streetscape. I mean, we don't need these large vehicles. There's plenty of room elsewhere in town to accommodate large trucks, and we're not against trucks, like Don said. We just need to keep our corridor clean or free of safety concerns is what we're trying to do.
And aesthetics.
Robert, I think that's a good point you made about signage. Maybe a proper signage could be part of the streetscape, just sort of direct truck drivers, especially those maybe not familiar with Gualala, as to where they can reasonably park without creating any kind of safety hazard.
Large vehicle parking and an arrow, and then that's enough for a trucker, If you
and there's, don't forget the aesthetic concerns as well.
Right.
That's a requirement of the town plan, county ordinances, and the local coastal plan to make the highway scenic. And I don't think truck parking is what they had in mind.
Right. But as some signage to that effect to direct them would be warranted, I think.
Sure. And that's easily done. That's, not part of
the aesthetics.
Not something we have to look at right now, but it's something down the road that we can think about is signage in town. I do think better parking signage would be welcome. And that's something that goes beyond the scope of this project, however. You know, George Provencher was at the MCOG meeting and said something that I thought was pretty wise, and that is, it's not that big a deal. If you eliminate this parking on the highway, and he was talking more about cars, I think, or cars and trucks, but if you eliminate the parking on the highway, people will find a place to park. There are plenty of places available. If you're driving a truck or an RV down the highway or a car, and you're looking to get lunch, you're going to see stores and you're going to pull into the parking lot. And they can do that now. They do that now. And they'll do that in the future, whether or not you will turn the front of the community center into a truck parking lot.
Okay, any other comments? We have had a motion and a second on this first motion. Should we take a vote, or
Sure.
Melissa? Are you still there, Melissa?
Less and more. Y'all get me all confused. I don't see any of these things, and I was asleep when it was read. And
Yeah, it's lengthy, yes.
I-
But
having trucks where you're talking about.
okay, so that is a, what would that be, a yes vote?
That's a no vote on the truck. Like I
Okay.
said,
Oh,
y'all have
wait. Melissa,
about-
Melissa, a yes vote for this motion would be a no vote on the trucks. We're asking, we're asking Caltrans and MCOG to reject the idea of parking. Are you for that? Are you for
I'm
rejecting the idea of parking?
I'm for rejecting it. Yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Melissa.
That's an
Dom,
aye?
Aye.
aye. You said aye, Tom?
Yes, I also vote aye.
And I'm an aye also on rejecting the idea of parking, truck and large vehicle parking at that community center location. Okay, so we have
Okay.
4 ayes on motion 1. Do we want to go into motion 2 a little bit further, Tom?
Yeah.
Well,
Put that back up on the screen.
nobody's seconded motion
Nobody-
2.
This has not been seconded yet. Do we have a second on motion 2?
What?
Let me read the lead of motion 2 again. Gualala MAC advises Caltrans and MCOG that alternative 4C, if any, may contain both interim parking at the surf center and a left turn lane for safety at Highway 1 and Ocean Drive intersection, subject to the following conditions. And there are 9 conditions.
Anybody want to second that motion?
Well,
Or would anybody like to hear the conditions again?
you know, I could second the motion, but really just for purposes of discussion at this point. So I
Okay.
will second.
We have
I
a
will second the
second.
motion.
Thanks, Don. Okay, let's discuss it then. What issues might there be there? You want to read?
Can I make a few comments here?
Go ahead, Don. Go for it.
Okay. What bothers me a little bit about this one is I think it's complicated. And I also think that we already voted for the alternative 4A, I believe, or maybe it was B, but I think it was 4A. But I think we also said that 4B was acceptable. So
Right.
we were already on the record in favor of that approach. And then Caltrans comes back and says, oh, we're thinking of building this, truck parking. Okay, well, we just dealt with that motion, so that's done. So here's another alternative 4C that Caltrans hasn't even proposed that we are throwing back at them. Is that correct?
Roughly speaking, yes, but let me point out that we also twice previously voted for just this, for interim parking at the Surf Center and left turn lanes at Highway 1 and Ocean Drive. We've twice voted for that when we, back in September of 2019, and again, more recently, just before Caltrans issued Alternative 4, we asked them to go back and come up with an alternative that would allow interim parking in front of the surf, but otherwise endorse all elements of the Gualala Town Plan, which would include the left turn lane. So we've twice supported that, and the only reason I think that we supported for A and B was because Caltrans came back to us and said, there's too much congestion downtown, so we're suggesting to move the interim parking uptown. So that, now they seem to be saying that they're going to assess whether they could allow interim parking downtown, which seems to go against what they told us earlier. So the first condition here is they would have to reverse their own existing finding and affirm that current congestion at level could tolerate parking at the surf, in which case it may make more sense to our council to allow parking at the surf instead of uptown, where nobody really parks. So that's why we're bringing this back. In other words, this would be what we asked for last August, was it? When we said they should observe the interim constraint plan at the surf and otherwise observe the town plan. That's what this would accomplish. But it would not preclude the idea of 4A or 4B. It would just say, if they do develop a 4C, we could support that if these conditions are attached.
Okay, well, I guess my concern here is just dragging this thing out with another alternative, this time 4C, that Caltrans is going to have to evaluate, and they're going to have to go against what they already came up with 4A and 4B. In other words, elimination of on-street parking in front of the surf because of obvious traffic issues there. Those traffic issues are not going away if we have the interim parking. And my understanding is that the interim parking was only really added because it's not, technically it's not part of the town plan. The town plan really calls for left turn lanes, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, you're correct.
So in effect, Caltrans came back with to us with 4A and 4B with plans that essentially were town plan compatible, except for that parking on the north part of town. Which, do we even need that? I'm not convinced, since not a whole lot of people park there anyway, as far as I can tell. But yeah, on the other hand, given that accident that occurred, a left turn lane coming down that hill perhaps likely would have prevented that accident. But also, that was probably a rare accident. I don't know of any others similar that have occurred in that exact location. Maybe somebody else does. I certainly haven't been around.
There was one almost exactly like that also resulted in serious injury. I don't know about how many total, but I know there was at least one other serious injury accident there.
Okay, well, I think that is an issue because of people coming down that hill. And while technically and officially the speed limit is 25, most people are going more than 25 coming down that hill because of gravity and whatever. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, part of me says, yeah, we kind of do need that. But on the other hand, do we want to, create more confusion with Caltrans and have them, you know, start over and come up with another plan and presentation and all this. I mean, I just don't want to, I think it's been long enough. You know, we need to move forward and
let me
get
address
this
that.
project going.
Yes, I agree too.
Let me address that. I agree with you, Don. However, Caltrans will be assessing whether they're going to create 4C. This is basically saying, if you do that, here are conditions we would want to put on that. And this is meant to help guide them in their assessment of whether to develop a 4C or not. My guess is, for listening to them at the MCOG meeting, is that they are planning to develop, to incorporate other suggestions. So the real question here is, would you want the interim parking, in any version of alternative 4, there is alternative parking. In A, it would be on the upper east side of town. In B, it's on the upper west side of town. And in C, it would be in the southwest part of town by the surf center. So it's, where would you rather have the interim parking if there is interim parking? Would you rather have it at the surf center where people actually park, or would you rather have it on the north end of the town where they don't? And if you don't have it on the north end of town, that would allow them to create the left turn lane that I think we all agree would enhance safety.
Melissa had something to say.
I had something to say. I want to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to tell Caltrans to stop jerking us around and just go with either the 2 previous approved things and just stop coming up with more and 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 more. We're tired of it.
Melissa, if you could see this screen, you would see all the other conditions that we came up with to allow interim parking at the surf, even though we don't agree with that. But if that were to happen, or if that had to happen, then all these other conditions should also play a role in that decision for interim parking there. Am I right, Tom?
You're just
Correct.
Complicating things. We already have 2 things that they gave to us and said, which one do you like? And we said, we'll take either one. Just give it to us and stop talking about it.
If Tom were to go back to that screen showing the left-hand turn lane there at the north end, you would see that it makes very good sense. I have today, Javier Chavez stopped by my office, and he was the guy that was rear-ended at that intersection. And
yes, I know him.
You know him too, and we all know him too. I was very happy to see him, and he seems to be in fairly good shape. And I asked him, and I'm sure Tom has before too, or maybe you guys have, do you think that would have helped had there been a designated left-hand turn lane there? Because a lot of people turn left at that intersection to go, whether it's to Cypress Village, to RCMS, wherever. And I think it would be nice to be able to incorporate that into a condition like we're proposing in this motion too.
However, the streetscape stops at that intersection. There is no plan to do anything north of that intersection, so there wouldn't be a turn lane put in there anyway.
Yet in alternative 2, way back when, there was.
They did that.
That's correct.
Plan. We're beyond that.
Not necessarily. This could be part of the project. It's the same width as it was in alternative 2. It would allow the turn lane. And if you have the turn lanes there, it makes sense to continue it south of Ocean. And if there's no parking south of Ocean, if 4A and 4B both had parking north of Ocean or south of Ocean, if you put a left turn lane in there, you don't have that parking. If you take that parking out, you could put it in front of the surf center on an interim basis until they finish their
But the
redevelopment project.
turn lane needs to be north of that intersection.
Right.
Yeah, but that would be possible there anyway.
I think they could incorporate that into a, well, 4A or 4B if they remove the parking on the north end of town.
Yeah,
I want to.
and alternative 1 and 2 also had this in it.
I want
Right.
to see all this. I want to see all these things. I'm not going to vote on any of this because I can't see any of it. And even if I could see it, I'd want to look at it and think about it for a while rather than have it flashed at me and then say, okay, now what do you want to do? I don't know. Let me think about it.
Well, we're bringing it to you now. It is visible if you could get online.
It's not a question that's visible. I wouldn't vote on it even if I could see it. I need to see it and think about it for a while.
I'm sorry, you talked about getting this project done. And I agree with you about Caltrans that, I wish they would just stop working on this and just bring something to MCOG for approval. And that was the point of last month's resolution.
Right.
Now they are going to be assessing this. Well, no matter what we do here tonight, they are going to be assessing this. I was told that it would happen about now. And the question is, does the council want to have any input into that assessment or does it not? So this would give input to Caltrans and MCOG saying, we do think this is a good idea. We don't think this is a good idea. So we've already voted to say we don't think the truck parking is a good idea, but we could say that this could be an alternative if you follow these conditions. So that's the input we'd be giving to Caltrans as they make that assessment. And one of the conditions in the motion is to, I want to make sure I get this right, that Caltrans return the completed concept to MCOG for action as soon as possible per the direction of the council on April 5th. So we're asking them to, if you're going to develop 4C, include all these conditions and bring it back to MCOG for final approval. MCOG would make the final decision on this. By not voting on this, you're basically giving up your right to comment on what Caltrans is doing.
That is again, that's bullshit. Come on, let's just say stop doing this. We had 2 plans last month. Do one of them. Stop coming up with conditions and stop coming up with other ideas. Just do that one. It was fine. We were happy with it. Everyone was happy with it.
Well, in that case, you won't get a left turn lane, and you would have parking on the north end of town where nobody parks versus the downtown area where people do park.
We would have exactly what we could need, which would be that width, nice and paved, and all you have to do is restripe it, and bingo, there's no parking, there's a turn lane.
Would it help, Melissa, if we read these 9 points to you again?
No, it wouldn't.
No, okay. That turn lane for me is important.
If the turn lane is north of the intersection,
then we lose the parking.
We would ask that the turn lane be extended. That's in here. It would say eliminate the interim parking in 4A and 4B to add north and southbound turn lanes from Church to Ocean, including southbound Highway 1 at Ocean. So it would be asking for the turn lane from Church to Ocean, including that intersection. And it would eliminate the parking.
How long have you had this resolution written up?
A day. We worked on this yesterday.
Why didn't you send it to us?
It was only finished yesterday, and it would have been a Brown Act violation to forward it to council members without a 72-hour notice. We'd have to We have to disclose it to the public and council at the same time. We literally just
Then why
finished
are we
this
allowed to
yesterday
vote
afternoon.
for it now? Why are we allowed to vote for it now when it wasn't on the agenda?
It is on the agenda.
It's on the agenda, Melissa. Possible action on the agenda. It was a two-part motion. The motion to have no truck parking at the south end of town was kind of like a no-brainer. This one is.
It's not on the agenda.
Yes,
Our
it is.
update on the GCAP committee is on the agenda every month.
Up from MCOG hearing, but it doesn't give any specifics of what you're talking about. I don't see how it's not a violation of the Brown Act, because no one in public had any clue that you were going to have something like this vote on. No one's listening to it because no one had a clue it was going to be done.
Well,
This
it was
is-
discussed at the
Yeah.
MCOG meeting on April 5th. Robert and I have discussed it in committee at length, up to the point where we were still discussing it yesterday, and came up with this motion. So that's a normal process. If we had finished it last week, we would have shared it with you and the public last week, but we didn't. We have things going on in our life, and we finished it yesterday. It's a complicated issue. But we do have an
So why is it
opportunity
that
to.
they don't wait the next month to vote on it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I didn't hear that
Why
either.
don't we wait till next month to vote on it? So that the public has a chance to read it as well.
Why?
This is a public
Well-
meeting. And you know what? The MCOG released their video of their meeting last month. It's been available for a month. Anybody can watch it. You could have watched it. You could have asked us what went on at the MCOG meeting. We'll be happy to talk to you about that. But in this case, the question is, do you want to give Caltrans and MCOG feedback on these two ideas, or do you not? And the ideas, I think, Robert and I discussed it, and we thought the left turn lane makes sense. We added conditions that it be extended through the north part of town, and that if we're going to have parking in front of the surf, that we eliminate the parking on the north end of town, which really was added only because there was no parking elsewhere in town. So the interim parking basically would be moved from the north end of town to in front of the surf center where people actually might use it. And we'd get the left turn lane on the north end of town. That's the point of this motion. Now, you don't have to vote for it. I understand your concerns. It is a complicated issue. Happy to answer any questions. But Caltrans is Caltrans. They're going to go ahead and assess this with or without our input. I think we could tell them that Robert and I, came to this conclusion as a committee, but we'd like to see if the council wants to join us in this view or has another motion they want to present. It's up to the council to decide that. That's why we're bringing it to the council.
I think the motion itself says it all without all the 9 points. I mean, we're not necessarily trying to encourage another alternative here, Melissa. It says alternative 4C in parentheses, if any. We were looking to stick with the 4A or the 4B, but as Don says, I mean, really we shouldn't have any parking along this whole stretch, but the downtown most congested part of town, if it were to have interim parking, then we feel all these 9 conditions should be a part of that.
Oh, as one of the conditions that there be a really nice wide space between the parking and the driveways.
Yes.
No, but
Yes.
we have the.
Yes, there is.
red-
Yes, Robert, there's a requirement for a 25-foot view clearance from all
Right, the red
driveways,
curb.
both north and south.
The red curve issue is what I wanted to say, yes.
Yeah, the red curb thing.
So- So it would require 25 feet of red curb next to all the driveways, northbound and southbound, to enhance safety during the interim.
Okay, so when you go in, leave Surf Market, there's going to be a 25-foot clear space to the next vehicle.
From both
That's
driveways.
That's
yeah.
what this motion asks for.
And what we recommend.
Oh, you know, that's good. That's a curious requirements that you're asking for, because that in and of itself is going to eliminate an awful lot of parking. So I'm not sure that what's the point? You know, if you're going to eliminate a lot of parking by putting a 25-foot setback for no parking at these exits, then what is the point? You know, I think I strongly support Caltrans finding, when they develop 4A and 4B, that there should not be parking in front of the surf. And the reason is for safety concerns that are real. And this is why I think we all would like to see a left-hand turn lane, you know, at Ocean Drive coming from the north for safety reasons. It's for safety. So for safety reasons, we shouldn't have on-street parking, and that is what the Gualala Town Plan calls for. And that is what I support. So the only part of this motion that we're considering here that I do support is that left turn lane. Everything else, I don't support. So if the motion stays as it is now, I will vote against it. I really think we should make it clear that we still, as a council, fully support either 4A or 4B, which we voted unanimously for fairly recently.
Well, 4A and 4B include parking uptown and would preclude the left turn lane.
Yes, but that parking uptown, on the north side of town does not represent the kind of safety issues that parking in front of surf does, in my opinion.
But it also
And
nobody parks uptown.
Then it's a safe approach.
And you won't get a left, and you don't get the left turn lane.
We could ask for the left turn lane. I'm
You
in favor
of
the left turn lane.
If you have parking.
Hang on, one at a time. Melissa?
We could ask for the left turn lane because there's no parking north of that intersection in 4A and 4B. So you could go ahead and just say, okay, do 4A and 4B and put in a turn lane because people have been very grievously harmed.
That's what I'm in favor of. Eliminating the on-street parking on the north end of town, since nobody will use it anyway. Put in the left-hand turn lane, and then put a left-hand turn lane coming from the north at Ocean Drive. That is what I'm in favor of. Not in favor of interim parking anywhere, really.
However,
you could propose an alternate motion and ask for these things separately. We considered doing that originally, but it gets more complicated. And the trouble is these all tie together. If you get the left turn lane, then you could end up with interim parking in more than one place. If Caltrans decides it's okay at the surf, they may put it in at the surf and on the north end in a 4C. And that's what we're speaking to. So this would require them to choose. 4A, east side. 4B, west side. 4C would be surf. But the surf would only happen if they follow, we would ask them to only do that if they follow these requirements. And that would include the left turn lane. It would eliminate the interim parking on the north end where nobody parks. And it would add safety features in front of the surf, like the 25-foot red curb. Now, it's not unreasonable the Caltrans safety people are supposed to review these things anyway, and there's not supposed to be parking within about 20 or 25 feet of any driveway where there's major egress to the highway. So these are reasonable conditions, and it does give Caltrans more direction. If we break this motion up, then they could kind of pick and choose what parts they like, and not have council input into it. So, you know, it's up to you. If you want to make an alternative motion, I'm not sure, you know, I would support the idea of park 4A and 4B over this, because we did approve 4A and 4B with the understanding there would be no parking downtown. This would eliminate that and allow parking downtown. If they go with a 4C, you could end up with parking downtown and uptown.
You know, the other reason, one other point I want to make is, and this is about providing motivation for those responsible for developing some new version of the surf center to actually move forward and do something. And if we provide interim parking for them in front of the surf center, this just buys them more time to, you know, not really get moving on this project, which I think is very important in the long run for Gualala. And you know, to give them interim parking, and even then with these 25-foot setbacks where nobody supposedly can park, it'll be painted red, but who's going to enforce that? I don't know. I mean,
Well, I think people generally don't park at red curbs, first of all. But this does include a requirement to set the interim at 4 years. This project probably won't get built for 4 years. So in that time, the parking is going to continue unregulated completely if you do nothing. This would set the interim at 4 years from the time of MCOG approval, or end when the surf center completes its redevelopment project. So the interim parking would be finite. It would be limited. The red curbs would reduce the number of spaces. At the MCOG meeting, Mr. Bauer talked about needing 5 spaces. He says he has room for 90 cars and he wants 95. My personal feeling is that he built that into his plan, but we haven't seen a plan there yet. In this case, the interim parking would be allowed to continue there if Caltrans reverses its earlier finding and says the current congestion level could tolerate it. I don't know if Caltrans will do that. It would set the interim at 4 years. It would not be permanent parking for surf center. And in any case, during those 4 years, right now, people will continue to park there. It would require red curbs to improve clearance during that interim. Not wait until the project, but during the interim. It would make the bike lanes safer. It would set a time limit on the parking for interim parking. It would allow the use of interim parking by trucks rather than create some new truck parking somewhere else in town. So some of those spaces could be used by those trucks you were talking about earlier. And it would eliminate the interim parking in 4A and 4B, which to my mind is not needed. People don't park on the north end of town. Why build parking there, even on an interim basis, when what we really need is a left turn lane that can't be built if there's interim parking there. And it would also ask Caltrans to complete its negative declaration process that it began 2 years ago, and move forward on this and bring it back to MCOG for approval. So, you know, to Melissa's point, it would tell them to get on the ball and finish up and bring this back to MCOG as soon as possible, as the council requested. So it achieves multiple goals, and that's why we're presenting this. If we don't do this, then pretty much you're giving up the opportunity to comment on Caltrans ideas here. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. That's within the real realms of the council. But
What's that, Melissa?
I'll vote for it.
we'll vote for it. Okay.
But
I'll vote for it.
Dawn, are you satisfied with these 9 bullet points?
Well, okay. There's a little bit more clarity now. Effectively, this 4-year interim period starts when MCOG approves
The project.
whatever plan they end up approving, correct?
Right.
So,
Right.
but
and
the actual,
MCOG has indicated it wants to do that as soon as possible.
okay, but then it's going to be what, 3-4 years before they actually start constructing this?
It's going to be 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so I guess then the only benefit, and which is not insubstantial, is the painting of the curbs, because nothing's going to change about parking in front of the surf until they start building the new streetscape. Is that correct?
That's one of the benefits, yes.
So
Okay,
somebody will
so-
immediately come with a can of paint and paint red curbs?
Cal,
I mean, if in fact this means that those curbs are going to be painted red and there's going to be a 25-foot setback where nobody can park, then that is a benefit, a short-term benefit, until we eliminate parking entirely along the whole downtown area, which is I think should be our goal, to comply with the town plan and to enhance, to the extent that we can, to the furthest extent that we can, safety in the downtown corridor. So maybe, and if this does also, by asking for interim parking, well, I guess we're not really asking Caltrans to change that much, because it sounds like this interim parking won't be in effect anymore once Caltrans starts building Streetscape. Is that more or less correct?
Streetscape would be constructed about the time the 4 years would expire. That's our current expectation.
Okay, then that's, that satisfies me to a certain extent, but then I just kind of wonder, well, what is even the point of specifying interim parking when there's going to be interim parking? The only thing we're going to gain here potentially is the red curbs painted, that is something in terms of safety. If they in fact would do that right away without the streetscape being built.
Well, that's what we're asking. We're saying we don't be okay with this subject to these conditions.
And the other thing we're asking for is for Caltrans to come up with a final design so that MCOG can take action on this design, hopefully end of summer, beginning of this fall. That's about the timeline
Correct.
that we learned they're dealing with when we went to this MCOG meeting back in April.
And we'd also ask Caltrans to do that without recirculating this for more public comment. One of the goals here is to avoid another public debate on what they should do about parking and streetscape.
Sure.
So part of this resolution, or part of this motion, is asking them to complete the negative declaration process without recirculating the plan.
We know what's needed.
This is basically a superficial change, moving parking from one place to another and adding a left turn lane for safety. It does not require recirculation and another public debate about this that could take years.
Correct, but I just kind of don't see the point of some of this, since we're asking,
it's also
Caltrans to reverse its former finding, but we're also thinking, well, by the time this gets built, the 4-year interim will be done, and then what? Then they go back to the 4A, 4C plan, or I I don't know.
No. This would be in lieu of 4A, 4B. It would eliminate the interim parking proposed in 4A, 4B. So 4A and 4B are still active. If Caltrans decides that they, in their assessment, they determine that, yeah, parking in front of the SURF could be done, then we would ask them to attach these conditions. That's the only time that all this would happen. If they decide that, no, there's too much congestion there, we can't have parking there, then there is no 4C.
And that's a conclusion that they've already really come to, Tom.
Well, I don't know.
Well, through the 4A, 4C alternatives, I think they've come to that conclusion, but should they go to another, which we're trying to discourage, go to another alternative at this point. We've discussed this so much now, and that's to Melissa's point again, is we need to move forward with something here, and MCOG wants to decide on something. So Caltrans needs to complete their design.
You know, this basically tells Caltrans that if they're going to go ahead with 4C, yeah, go ahead and finish it up quick, but with these conditions. And if they're not going to go, if they look at these conditions and say, well, no, we can't meet these, then maybe they won't do 4C. But the main thing is here to give them some input. If you're going to have a 4C, if you're going to allow parking and reverse yourself, then we want red curbs. We want time limits on the parking. We want to eliminate the parking in 4A and 4B. We want the left turn lane. And we want you to do this all quick and get it back to MCOG for approval. So that's basically what we're saying here.
We're saying quit gassing and build the damn thing.
Yeah, that's another way to put it.
Yeah, I think that's what we all want, but I just think presenting them with these alternative 4C conditions that we are asking for, that just, to me, that's going to say, okay, go back to the drawing board, and then just more delays. The other thing is
they're already back
here.
at they're already back at the drawing board.
Why are we saying Caltrans must reverse its former findings and affirm the current congestion? Why don't we say Caltrans would have to reverse? A must is like a demand.
It
It's
is
like
a demand.
demanding. You have to do this. That's a demand.
That's a condition that they reverse their former finding. We don't think Caltrans will reverse its former finding. I'd be surprised if they come back and say that, you know, we're going to, you know, Caltrans would said that there was too much congestion to allow this. Now they'd have to say, well, there's not too much congestion after all, we can allow this. So condition one is they'd have to reverse that. And then the other conditions.
You just used the wording that I think should be in this if we're going to pass this. Not must, but would have to. There's a difference.
Okay. But that's a condition. Our condition is Caltrans would have to reverse? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Sorry, I lost the page there. All right, let me change it. Caltrans would have to reverse its former finding and affirm that current congestion level can tolerate interim parking by the surf center.
Correct. I think that's
all right.
That's better wording. That's not making a demand. That's saying, well, in order for this to happen, you would have to reverse your former findings.
All right.
You know,
I'm okay with that wording. Are we good? Can we vote?
Let me look at it a little bit more here.
No one wants to make a motion to just say stop gassing and build the damn road.
That's in here, Melissa.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't say it quite like that, but that's basically what this says.
Well, that's one reason I didn't go into politics. I don't understand weasel words. Don't like them.
Yeah, I got bad news for you. You're in politics.
I know I am. But I didn't do it when I was 28 when I could have. Almost.
Okay. Are you're 29 now?
32. No, 33.
Okay. It's a good age.
Okay, well, effectively, this is just a set of recommendations that we're making, and Caltrans can accept them or not, and they can do what they see fit.
Well, do you want to give them recommendations or do you not?
Clearly, if they're not willing to reverse their former findings regarding interim parking in front of the SURF, then that's that. But maybe we could still get the left turn lane at Ocean Drive. And also the red painted curbs.
Well, this would not only ask for a left turn lane at Ocean Drive, but it would allow the left turn lane from Church to Ocean, because it would add a condition to eliminate the interim parking at 4A and 4B.
Which I kind of agree is not terribly useful to most people.
Right.
The turn would be useful.
Turn, yeah, from a safety standpoint, that makes more sense to use that space for left turn lanes. I do kind of wish we had had more time to consider this, because we've had to spend so much time during this meeting just on this one issue. And I mean, is there urgency that we vote on this tonight? I'm not sure.
I would say so, because after the MCOG meeting, Robert and I approached Caltrans and said, we would like to give input on this. And they said, we're not even going to be looking at this until the beginning of May. They said a month, which is the beginning of May. So they're going to start looking at this around now. And this is, so I consider it urgent to want to have the council have an opportunity to give input on this matter. Now, I want to tell you also, Robert just called me on the phone to let me know that his internet went down. So he's not in the meeting right now. I think we could take a break or let him get back in, or he could join us by phone.
I was going to say, can you just phone in right quick?
Yeah, I'm gonna suggest call him back and suggest that he call in. He said he was going to try to get back online. So I'd like to suggest a short recess, if that's okay.
Okay, send him a text saying.
It's 7:55 now. We'll let's plan on being back at 8 p.m. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll leave this on the screen so people can read this in the interim. All right. I'm going to go put myself on mute here, if I can figure out how to get back down to the mute thing.
I'm back in the meeting. Can anybody hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, Robert.
Okay.
We are in recess until 8 p.m. We have one more minute.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Hi, Melissa. I'm on the phone here. I have no internet all of a sudden at my office. I can't get on Zoom. It will not allow.
Okay. No problem. If you're on,
I'm just worried about the folks that are waiting to hear what we're going to do on these CDP assignments. Primarily.
Okay. Well, I think as soon as Don is ready to rejoin us, we can resume the meeting.
Okay. Thanks for the recess.
Don, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that, you guys. It says site can't be reached. I'm still trying to reach Zoom here, but I can't seem to do it.
No problem.
No
Robert,
internet.
I think we're ready for a vote on this, unless anybody else has any other comments, and then we can go on to the rest of the meeting.
Can we finish up motion 2 then, council members? Are we okay on that?
Ready for a vote.
Okay, Melissa.
Oh. The last one had me confused. Now I don't know which way this is supposed to go.
Would you like me to read the main part of the motion again?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Gualala MAC advises Caltrans and MCOG that alternative 4C, if any, of the Gualala downtown project may contain both interim parking at the Surf Center and a left turn lane for safety at Highway 1 Ocean Drive intersection, subject to the following conditions.
Okay.
And then it lists the 9.
I'm good.
Then it lists the 9 conditions.
I vote aye.
Okay, it's an aye.
That was an aye. And Don?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And Robert? I'm an aye on that. And the whole thrust is going to be to get Caltrans off the dime and to come up with a design here that MCOG can approve.
All right.
So
listen, team, thanks. May I say something, Robert? I just want to thank everybody for their patience. Melissa, your point is taken. If we can get these done a little earlier, it's far preferable to me to get these out to the community and the council so that they have more time to review it and we spend less time on it at meetings. So your point is well taken. And Don, you asked good questions. I hope I gave you some good answers.
Okay, well, I'm glad we're moving on now from this one.
Yeah,
it was a tough one.
There shouldn't be much left at this meeting now that we've done. Well, we do have some things to announce. Don and I do on F, and we've got to get through C, D, and E. So, Mary Mulbert is still with us?
Yeah, yes, I'm still here. I'm still here,
Okay,
Robert.
and I hope our audience members are still with us too. They may have gotten impatient.
Oh, I need to stop sharing. There we go.
They may have gotten impatient.
Yes, they are still here. Ken
Okay.
Eaton, Jackie DS, and Paul W. are all still with us.
Sorry about the technical difficulties there, especially with regards to my connection, audience members. But we will now move on to 5C. That's the Housing and Economic Development Committee, which consists of Tom at the moment. Tom, do you have anything for us on that tonight?
I have nothing for you tonight.
We'll keep that one brief. Okay. Well, and I'm sure we'll get a lengthier one next month. Dawn and I met on the.
Oh, no.
I wonder if he's using Wi-Fi for his telephone.
We've
In
lost
which
Robert.
case,
He's off again.
oh.
I don't know if he knows he's off again.
Don could report for the vehicle.
Well, yeah, I certainly could for the EV charge.
Yeah.
I have nothing to report.
All right, let me just say something as Vice Chairman here. As long as we take no action, we can continue to hear committee reports. I'll steer through a couple of committees. Do you have anything to report on EV charging stations, Don?
No, nothing's changed since the last report.
Okay. Telecommunications, as the agenda says, we had 60 plus views on YouTube last month. And anything else on telecommunications, Don?
No, I don't have anything, Tom.
Okay. We'll need to wait for Robert to rejoin us for the water.
Well, I can.
And then we need to assign the inspections.
I could start with my part of the water ad hoc committee. And then.
Okay, since you've already discussed it with Robert, I think that would be okay. And as long as we don't take any action. Oh,
Correct.
We have a waiting room. Here we go. Here's Robert back.
Oh, good.
Robert, are you with us?
Kind of ridiculous.
Robert?
Yes,
There
I'm
he is.
here.
Okay, you're back.
I've not.
Okay, well, we made a little progress while you're gone.
Okay.
We took care of the telecommunications committee and the EV charging. So there were no reports on either, and we're ready for the water ad hoc committee.
Oh, I'm not sure why I'm getting. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm getting dropped so much here at my office. I'm really sorry about that. But last month.
Water ad hoc committee.
Yeah, Dawn and I at last month's meeting we stated we had plans for tentatively holding a water forum at or around the middle, well, in the middle or towards the end of May. And we just met recently, Dawn and I, and we kind of came to the conclusion that we're just not ready yet to hold this forum. I think we said, Dawn, that we were going to put it on hold for a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We do need some more time. Myself, I'm involved in some personal stuff. I'm going to be busy the next month, and I can't put this other work off. I have no choice. So I've got much less time that I can devote to this. Although I would like to state that today was my first session of a online seminar that I'm attending, and it's put on by UC Davis, and I think it's going to be really good. It's titled Groundwater, Watersheds, and Groundwater Sustainability Planning. And the instructors for this are like world-class experts in the field. There are 4 PhDs, other people involved in teaching the subject matter. UC Davis apparently is one of only a handful of what they call integrated hydrologic science programs in the entire United States. So they really have the expertise there. And this program, I think, is going to be very good. And it goes until June 3rd. It's about one session a week for a couple hours. So I think that'll be good for me to attend, to get up to speed on some of these issues before we have our forum. And the other thing I was thinking, if I can pull this off, I would love to get one of these people who are the instructors to attend our little forum and provide some expert commentary on our situation.
Mm-hmm. That would be special, yeah.
So that's where we're at. We're not really prepared to move forward yet, and we did state it was a tentative date. Was not locked down. So
right, we haven't had the time to get to these other experts that we need to attend our forum. I did write a letter to North Gualala Water Company and ask them to affirm or to let me know or us know that they received our correspondence. I haven't heard from them yet, and I haven't had a chance to follow up with them. There's other people that have committed expert-wise, but we're just not ready. So as important as it is with the water situation this year, and we until further notice, we'll be able to hopefully give you a more definitive date or some more information at this coming June meeting, I would think, Don.
Yeah.
It would certainly be helpful if we got more council members. And Robert, I know you're working with the supervisor to try to make that happen. But we need more help on the council. It would really be helpful. I would like to point out that Dave Bauer stopped me in the street the other day and asked if this was going on. And also I ran into Lynn Walton from Fogger, and she's also interested in talking to you
on
guys.
The Water Forum, okay.
So you can reach out to both. Yeah, I directed both Dave and Lynn to speak to you two about that. So people are hearing about it, and they are interested in participating.
Good. So you did hear from Dave Bauer.
Please reach out to them.
That's good news. Okay.
He's my neighbor and my friend,
Right.
so yes, I heard from him the other day.
Well, that's good encouraging news. Okay.
Are you seeing my shared screen? Okay.
Yes.
This is just a brief overview of this course. I mean, the timing of it is like perfect in my mind.
No internet. What the heck? So you guys are reviewing something on the screen?
No, not anymore.
Should we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got quite a few CDPs this time around. We all need to participate and volunteer on walking these and reviewing these before our June meeting. Should we go right down the? What's that, Melissa?
I have a point.
You have a what?
A point to make.
Okay.
On the subject of CDPs. Nine days ago, I had to, at this time, 9 days ago, I was at RCMS in urgent care after hours to have a tick removed. I'm not walking in high grass. I'm not walking anywhere except on gravel, on dirt, or on concrete.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, I would like to suggest that Melissa, you take the Temple DS CDP. It's I know
right
that
across
place.
the street from her.
Right across the street from me. It's level. I don't think you'll need to walk on the land at all. It's basically a lot along Highway 1 between Highway 1 and Sedalia Drive, and there's a driveway that goes through it as well on the Ayurvedic Center. So that would be a good one for you to tackle. I
have a driveway that my tiny low clearance sports car can drive on.
Yes.
Not really. You could walk to this one, Melissa.
Yeah, you could either walk to it or you could drive and park on Sedalia or even on the highway. So you're good.
I don't park on. There are no parking places on the highway.
Well, you can park on Sedalia or on the Ayurvedic Center.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Robert, I'll volunteer for Catone at Curtis.
Okay. I could do that one too. And then the other one at the very bottom, Holberg Olson, is north of where I'm at in Anchor Bay. I could tackle that one too, if someone else wants to help me with that one.
Yeah, I'll do that with, well, I don't want to cut Don out of this. Don, you want one of these?
We just need somebody to do, I'd rather not do the one close to town here either. I've already had some talk, I've already had some discussion with DS on that CDP. So I'll try to refrain from doing that one also. I'd like to do the other two.
Okay, I'll do one of those with you, the Catone Curtis. Don, can you do Temple Diaz with Melissa? Or do you want to do Holberg Olson? Well, yeah.
I guess
actually, I'd appreciate it. I'd appreciate it if you could do the Temple DS, because Robert and I want to stay out of that one. It's a neighbor of mine, and Robert's already been involved in it. So if you and Melissa could do Temple DS, I'll do Catone Curtis with Robert.
And we could do the other one too, Holberg Olson.
Robert and I'll do Holberg Olson as well.
Okay, so this is right near the Ayurvedic Center?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right
it's that property right below it and adjacent to it, Don.
Oh, it's an empty lot at this point.
The empty lot,
right?
yeah. There's a proposal.
It's an empty lot. Yeah, they want to put a manufactured home on it, on a foundation. They've drilled the well on it. So I don't know the status of the well, but I'm sure the CDP explains that. And there's some stumps on there to be removed.
Was drilled years ago.
Yeah,
the well
okay.
was drilled years ago, yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. It shouldn't be too hard.
So we've assigned all three of them then. We've got 2 council members walking and reviewing each one of these 3. And that's our goal, okay? So we're set for next month on that. Any other questions on these CDP assignments? Okay, then let's move on to Administrative Secretary Mobert's report.
Yes, I worked 21.55 hours last month. Materials were $3.56 for a total of $326.81. I've already submitted the statement to Robert, and I was paid for February or March.
Okay.
March, I apologize, March.
Okay, I'll get that submitted right away, Mary.
Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it. It takes them 2 or 3 weeks to get it to me.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks for your report. Tom Murphy's report?
I think I've had enough time tonight. I have nothing to add.
Okay. The only thing I would add on my report would be I keep on thinking about the water situation. It's just so tough this year, and it's just unprecedented. The water flows in how low they are in the river. I looked back through the USGS website we've never been so low. In other words, we're down below 10 cubic feet per second at this early stage of the year. And that's unheard of. Last year, I think it was just below 10 also, but this year we're already getting down to 8 cubic feet per second at this early time of the year. So I think we all know we're getting towards the tail end of the COVID crisis too, and we all want to ramp up again and build back up our local economy, but somehow we've got to really be thinking about water conservation, everybody. And I haven't had a chance to look at the water company website lately, but I'm hoping they're encouraging the same too. It's going to be a long spring and summer still, and fall for that matter. So that's all I have to say on my report. So sorry for the challenges on my end here with not having internet all of a sudden, but at least I thought of calling in like Melissa always does. So anything else, council members? Or should we?
Robert, I'll just whipped up the North Gualala Water Company site, and they have a big red flag on there saying mandatory conservation measures are in effect. So I second your comments on that. We all need to be careful and find ways to cut back on water usage.
Well, that's good to see that or hear that they have updated their site. It's drastic. Yeah, I'll look at that when I get home.
Well,
okay,
the website information, I mean, that's fine as it is, but how many people go to that website? I never do. I mean,
you got a point, Don, there.
What? They need to do, more needs to be done.
You're right.
Updating a website, I don't think is going to amount to a hill of beans.
Well, has anything been put in the paper today? Has anybody looked at the newspaper today? That
No.
would,
I did. I didn't see anything about that in particular.
that reaches a lot of people in the local area. There needs to be other measures taken. I agree, Don.
Didn't I read something about? Didn't I
Go
read
ahead, one of
something
you.
about the? Didn't I read something about the governor declaring a water drought emergency for Mendocino County?
Mendocino and Sonoma
Yes.
County, I heard.
And Sonoma County, that's correct, yeah.
Both counties, yeah.
That needs to be on the front pages of the ICO in red ink.
Melissa, will you call them?
Sure.
I think you're right on that. That needs to be in the forefront on their paper. Well, talk to them, see if you get somewhere with them, okay?
Okay.
We got to bring this, like we're doing to each other right now, we got to bring this to the community's attention. This is drastic. We're not going to get any more rain, to my knowledge.
Let's have a water forum.
Yeah, if we only could. If only we could take that much additional time out of our lives right at the moment. But we will. We'll have one in June, hopefully.
I'm just hoping that we have a lot of fog and cool this year, because we can get a lot of fog drip into the soil, and that will cut down on the fire danger. So, hope for fog, and everybody's going to hate it, but it's better than a lick of fire, I'll tell you. So
Well, Mary, we haven't even talked about that issue yet. The fire danger, boy.
We're in fire danger now.
Right.
The weather woman on Channel 7 said we are in fire now.
Yeah.
That you just better be careful throughout the summer, because this is fire season and it started early. And I'm just hoping for fog all along the coast, and just keep coming fog. Hooray. We get about a half hour rain from fog drip, and I'm hoping that it'll come like that.
Yeah.
I'm afraid hope is not going to save us.
No, it isn't, and I don't know if prayer is going to save us either, I'll tell you.
Well, you guys know the coastal weather, and it's inevitable that after the third day we get fog. After 3 days of hot inland temperatures, that marine layer comes in. Let's hope that the marine layer is still working as far as our local global climate situation.
And
oh boy.
I'm hoping that the wind will not be the 6 weeks of hair dryer that we usually have. I'm hoping that the wind will calm down and stop blowing and stop drying out what we have now.
Yeah.
The next 3 days are windy days up to 25 miles an hour.
It's been windy, and it's windy every year around March through June.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping that it cuts off about mid-May, maybe earlier, like the next week, please.
And our rainy months were always January and February, where we didn't get much.
We didn't get it.
So anyway, everybody pretty tired. Maybe we need somebody to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay. And a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Can I say all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Aye.
Thanks very much for everybody's input. Sorry about my technical difficulties again, and we'll see each other all around town, and feel free to email and call.
All right.
Stay
All
right.
well out there, you
Thank you.
guys. Stay well.
Okay,
Oh,
Mary,
well.
you too. You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again. Okay,
Good night,
guys.
everybody.
Good night. Thanks.